Hey folks, Larry Rolla here. I have a special guy on tonight. A real special guy. I don't know him very long, but he's just a special guy. I know him long enough to find out that there's very few things that impress me. I've been around a long time. And what impresses me the most, aside from everything else, is if you're a good guy, a respectful guy. And aside from being a good friend, a respectful guy, a great husband, a great father, he's one of the rarities out there. Before I bring him on, and I have to do all of this before I bring him on because he's going to downplay some of this stuff. But I just want you to read. I want you to read what he wrote, part of what he wrote. And he put it on Facebook, I believe. And I must have got 100 personal calls. And everybody wanted to know who this guy is. And I told him to watch tonight. You'll find out. Well, here's what he wrote. He said, "Hi, everyone. Tuesday night, September 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be doing a live podcast with my good friend Larry Rolla. He is the most fascinating guy I have ever met, and am lucky enough to call him a friend. I was a stranger who watched his podcast and figured what the hell, and called him, not expecting much, but he offered to have me at his house so we can talk horses. I showed up and I immediately realized I have met a friend for life. He has probably forgotten more about horses than I will ever know. He owned, trained, and was a driver for harness horses. We shared the same love for horses, and I wanted to learn all I can. I would drive 2.5 hours one way every Tuesday to his house just to talk. I learned a lot. Tuesday we'll be talking horses and also about health and how we can all live a long, healthy life and try and get off this roller coaster of prescription drugs and big pharma. I will tell my story in hopes of helping others." Now, that was just part of what he wrote, and I can't thank him enough for the kind words. Also, you should know that before this guy goes into anything, he checks it out. I mean, he don't go in half-ass. He checks it out, and I'm sure what he says. And some of you already watched it. He has a podcast. I think he's up to 4 podcasts already talking about health and fitness and all of that stuff. And a lot of people called me about it, that they watched it. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that too, and about a couple of other things that I have to say that I don't know if I told them or not, but we're going to bring them on before I screw this up. You're on, Peter.
What's up, Larry? How are you?
Okay. Well, a lot of people called me today. They're in fact, I have a real good friend that I know that your podcast helped him already. It helped him a lot, and he went and got that thing that you showed under your arm there. He went and got one of them, and he's feeling a whole lot better. He's changing because of you. He's changing his diet now. The guy, I'll tell you who it is. He's watching right now. His name is Alfred Natoli. He's Joe Pesci's stand-in double. He's an entertainer. He wrote the last song Sinatra ever sang was "Here's to the Band," the last single he ever made. Alfred wrote that song. He's been on Ed Sullivan. He's been all over the place. He's 90 years old now. He's getting a little crabby, but he's a good guy. And I went to see him today at his. He does a brunch thing every Tuesday at a place called Annabella's. Him and his wife Sharman. And Sharman was the one that helped me write the book. And Alfred and all his friends were the ones that forced me to write this book. But anyway, he's watching tonight, and he's going to be very interesting. He's going to be interested in a lot that you have to say, as am I, because as you know, I've been on ivermectin now for ever since I was when I had that operation. I think they took 22 inches of my large colon out. It was all cancer, one big cancerous tumor. And they said the next step would be chemotherapy. And I said, I'm not taking chemotherapy. I had my experiences with chemotherapy and all alternative treatments and everything that you're going to talk about 50 years ago in the 70s. And I'm not taking chemo. I took my first blood test after the operation, came back that there were still traces of cancer in my bloodstream. And they have this very sophisticated test. And they says, well, we got to put you on chemo. I said, no, but I found a surgeon that practices in this sort of stuff. And he's in part of his treatment is ivermectin and 3 other parasite killing drugs. And I hooked up with him, and I took ivermectin for 10 days prior to the next test, which was 3 months later, and it was clean. It was just clean. And I've been taking it. I stop, I go back, I top, but I'm anxious to hear what you say because I know that you research it to death. Okay, before we get into all that health stuff, I want to talk about the horses because I know that's one of your loves. And before I start, I want to say this too. And I said it. I think I said it before. And that's another thing, Peter. Sometimes in the middle of a sentence, I'll just blank out. I'll forget. But so as it comes into my head, I just got to say it. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it don't. But I have to say this, that I never met your wife, but she looks like a movie star. She is absolutely beautiful, as your 2 daughters, who are very, very successful. And when I first met you, I says, how did he accomplish all these things with the racehorses that he owns, everything that he knows, and have such a his kids called him 2-3 times a day. I spent many months with him, almost maybe 5 days a week. On the weekends, he would always go. He'd have to go. It'd be family time. He would sit with his kids. He taught his son, and he'll get into that because that's an unbelievable story, how his son is like one notch away from being a professional hockey player, and how he trained him and what he made him do. And he's just a great guy. He's just like one of them best husbands, best fathers. His 2 daughters are very, very successful and brilliant. And he's just a good guy. And then he came across me. Now, just like he wrote in the letter, he called me up one day and he said to me, he says, don't worry, Peter, you're going to get plenty of time to talk. I'm just going to.
All right, keep going.
Just like he said in this letter, he called me up one day and he said to me, he says, what he said was, and I've been around long enough to know that smart people do it in such a way, they patronize you, and it makes you feel good, and he did it in such a nice way that I couldn't wait to meet him. And sure enough, he drove 2.5 hours to my house, and then he sat down and I says, well, he said to me, he says, I think the opening line was, it was some line. It says, I realized that something like I've been. I need to talk to somebody that I feel that knows more than I'm learning, or something like that. So anyway, he came to my house, and we had lunch, and he used to come every Tuesday, and every Tuesday we talk about the horses and the lameness and the problems and this and that and everything else. And he told me his experience in the horse business. And after he finished, and I says, "What the hell do you need me for? I mean, you have horses. You have one horse that's probably one of the best horses in the country. You got offered, I think, maybe 200,000-300,000 for after one or two races. He'll explain that to you. But he's very, very successful. And then he's telling me how he's treating these horses with all of these new machines. Now, you keep in mind, I've been out of business for 30 years, and he was telling me all about these machines and everything. And he was very, very interested, and that's what he does. That's why what we're going to talk about later about your health and the pharmaceutical companies and all the drugs and everything. It's going to be interesting because he really digs into it. He gets right to the bottom of it, and he's a very successful guy in business too. I mean, he owns his own. He's very successful. So he said to me, he made me an offer, and at that time, I was sitting home doing nothing. I was going crazy, and the offer for me to get back into the business, and we would become partners, and he would put up whatever money was necessary, and I thought that was great. And I jumped at it. I jumped at it for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons was I really missed the horse business. I really loved the horse business. I got out of it when the Meadowlands closed their barn area, but I missed it so much. My preference would be harness racing for a bunch of reasons, but he was into the thoroughbreds. And he was like a sponge. He listened to everything. He wrote everything down, and I think I impressed the shit out of him. That was until we went to Parks. When we went to Parks, what I told him was, I says, okay, here's what we're going to do. Because I'm not going to be around forever. You love the horses. You're probably going to be around a long time in the horse business. So let's start from the ground up. And we started from the feet, where 90% of the time that's the primary problem, regardless what other problem there is. And we start talking about feet. And then I says, what we're going to do is we'll go to Parks Racetrack. We'll find a farm. We'll find a farm that's near a couple of racetracks, 2 or 3 racetracks, and we'll claim a very cheap horse that has a lot of back class. And the horse that we claimed was a horse called Ahshad, Ahsad. Now the reason, yeah, I know. The reason I mentioned this was because I get a phone call every time he races from 3 guys that live around that area, and I know he just won a 12,000 claimer, and in September, well, in July he won a 12,000 claimer at Philadelphia Park, and just recently on the 15th he won another claiming race. I don't know. I guess it was a 12 or 10.
10,000. Yeah, it was 10,000.
I watched the replays. I'm reminded all the time of this horse. Well, let me tell you about this horse. Let me tell you what happened, because I talked about it to Peter, and the reason I'm going to tell this story is just to show you the kind of man that this guy Peter is. He listened to everything I said. He did everything I told him to do. And I says, we're going to buy a classy racehorse. And we went to Philadelphia. We went to Parks Racetrack. Me and him, we sat down. And I looked through the sheets and looked through the programs, and what I wanted to do, my main thing was to buy an old classy horse, maybe 6, 7, 8 year old horse that had maybe a half a million earned, and that was just getting old and tired and worn out, and maybe had a few problems that he developed, and I could do the same thing I did with Kelly Jones. I could do, and that worked perfect. I could do it with Peter, and it would give me great satisfaction because I love to do it, and I love that challenge. So we went there, and Peter picked the horse, and I picked the horse. But Peter listened to me, and we picked the horse called Assad, the one that I wanted. I think he was 7 or 8 years old at the time. He won 400,000 lifetime, and he wasn't doing too well. And I says, we're going to take this horse, we're going to put him on a farm, we're going to find out what's wrong with him, we're going to freshen him up. Whatever is wrong, I'm going to show you what's wrong. I'm going to show you how to fix it. I'm going to show you all of these things. And that's what we did. We claimed the horse. When we claimed the horse, the first thing I did was just basic stuff. And we probably overdid it with a cheap horse, but it wasn't about the money. It was about doing the right thing, because probably the next horse that he's going to go into the much, much better horses later on. So if I put him on GastroGuard for 30 days at $40 a day, it was the lesson, and it was the GastroGuard that was the important thing. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the substitute for GastroGuard. It was GastroGuard, and we explained the reason why, and this and that and everything else. Then we went to the feet. We found out one foot was they had problems in the feet. I had problem one back leg. His blood count was down to 7 million. We wormed him. He was loaded with worms. We fixed his teeth, his mouth. He had a multitude of small problems that come with age and racing. And things were going great. And when we put him out in the paddock, and we took film of this, I did, and I showed it to him in the days, he loved it. He couldn't wait to get out there. And he just ran the first day we put him out there. He ran and jumped and rolled and just was a happy horse. Probably the first time in his 8 years of life that he was ever out in the open field, big paddock, grass, and he was having a ball. And then we bring him in, and every day we keep him on the GastroGuard. We did everything right. And he was quick. He had a couple of problems with his feet, and we wind up putting glue-ons on, even though I screwed that up because I have that I don't know what you call it when your thumbs don't work, and I try to put glue-ons on myself, and finally, the way I used to do it, and finally that turned out to be a complete abortion. And I called my friend Ian McKinley, and he come and he brought me a new set of glue-ons, and we wind up putting them on. And we would turn the horse out every day for about maybe 3-4 hours. We would take him out in the morning, then turn him out in the afternoon, and he was coming along great. But his blood count never went up, and that was a problem. And I kind of knew what that meant, but I didn't say much. But on the weekends, I would go home. I would take a vial of blood. We had a veterinarian that worked with us. He was a really nice guy. And then I hooked up with the other vet, the state vet that was there. But they worked with me. They understood what I was looking to do, and without mentioning anything or any names. And I took a couple of vials of blood with me and had them checked and everything. And it was not good. And it was always a horse's natural blood count should be red. So it should be right around 12, 13 million. This was down to 7 million. And I knew from my days from the 80s and 90s that this is not good. This is the result of Epigen that everybody was using in the 80s and 90s. And I seen the results of it because I used to go to hang out every day. I would be a vet's helper for free, Dr. Barmer and Dr. DeLeo. and we'd run across these things all the time. With the big stables, it was okay because we monitored their blood every week and made sure we didn't give them too much, because then the blood would turn into syrup and they'd wind up dying. And I'm skimming over a lot of stuff. I don't go into detail, so just bear with me. So no matter, every week I would check the blood. Every week I would give him a shot of, I get pig iron from the vet, my friend who's a veterinarian in New Jersey here. And when you give Epigen, you should give pig iron, because without iron, the red blood cells won't form. The body can't produce it. But pig iron by itself, I mean, if you're a human, you could, the body gets rid of it. That don't happen with a horse. They accumulate it, and it could kill it. So you have to be very, very careful. And it was bothering me that 2 weeks in a row I gave him a large dose of pig iron, and the blood count never went up. And I monitored the blood count very closely. Every weekend we would do it, and it was always the same. And I knew right then that I screwed up. I knew that the game passed me by. I knew that I should have did my homework instead of just jumping into something. And I knew that I don't think I was going to be successful with this particular horse. But it was something that he was improving so much. When we first got him, he wouldn't eat. Now he was eating. He never wanted to stop eating. Eat grass all day long, drink buckets of water. He was dehydrated when we first got him. His feet were good. The one back leg, everything was fine. And then his first race comes. And it was probably the most disappointing day I had in a long, long time. We put a girl jockey on, and the horse finished up the racetrack. And I asked around, and I didn't ask around. There was a trainer that was at Parks, at this farm that we were at, this beautiful training center. I can't think of the name of it, but Peter will fill it in later. And they told me that this horse is a battery horse, and that's how he has to be ridden. Now, I shouldn't be saying this, but this is what people were telling me, and I hate to bring these stories up, but I have to kind of defend myself to the guy who's on the screen now, who put up all the money and lost it all. I have to put up a defense, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Plus, the people that call me all the time and say he's racing today, and they, and it's So anyway, so I said, okay. So Peter says we got to get her off. She's not aggressive enough, and we did. We took her off, and the horse next start, I believe he finished second. I don't even know, but it was very disappointing, because we claimed him for $5,000, and in my opinion, he should have won by open lens, and it didn't impress me at all. But every weekend I would take this blood, and I had to stop giving him the pig iron, and I did, and it didn't make any difference. You see, once you abuse Epigen, the body starts to create antibodies, and after prolonged use of Epigen, the body just don't, it just falls to a level where it's just livable, and it never raises, and for some reason that level is always 7 million. That's what we found in the 80s and in the 90s, and I recognize that number. It's not 6, it's not 8, it's always 7. I don't know why, but anyway. So finally, I had to get around, and I had to tell Peter. I says, Peter, look, I says, I got it, and I also had and I think I told Peter this. I also had a trainer that knew the trainer there, and we had a long conversation one weekend. And Peter never used to come to the farm on the weekends. He stayed with his family, and we had a long talk. And my suspicions were 100% correct. Now, I told Peter, I says, Peter, and Peter says, well, let's try this and let's try that and let's try this and maybe. And what Peter said made a lot of sense. Maybe he got too used to the paddock. Maybe he don't want to race no more. And that never even entered my mind. But that was a possibility. It was a 7 or 8 year old that raced his whole life and never been out of a 10 by 12 stall. And now he's out in the field. And when you went to get him, he never wanted to come in. And when you were in the barn in the morning, he couldn't wait to get out. And that was a possibility. But when I realized after maybe 5 or 6 more blood tests and knowing there was nothing more I can do to pump up the blood, I'm almost positive that I got a hold of Peter. And I said, Peter, I said, aside from, I says, I hate to make excuses. But on the other hand, I have never, in thousands of horses that I trained through the years, ever not been able to help a horse. This was prior to Epigen. Never. It never happened to me. This was crushing. And I had to get to the bottom of it, and I did. Halfway through, I already knew, but I had to make sure. There was nothing more. He was as sound as he could be. He was feeling good and everything else. So the bottom line was, I told Peter, and I says, Peter, I said, this horse is, I'm not even sure if Epigen would help him anymore. I don't know. But they're using synthetic Epigen, and I can get it for you. I won't give it. I can get it for you. And Peter says, I won't give it neither. I don't want anything to do with it. If we can't help him, I don't want anything to do with Epigen or anything like that. I says, well, we're probably going to, just probably going to lose. And it's my fault. I should have did my homework. I should have known better. I've been out of the game too long. So we decided to give the horse to a trainer, the leading trainer at the racetrack, or one of the leading trainers. And he raced the horse 2 times. The day we gave him the horse, I told him, I says, listen, he has glue-on shoes. By the time he has to be done again, you could probably nail him on because the feet will grow out past the 3 spots where he was quicked at. I said, and he's basically 100% sound. He's racehorse sound. You don't have to worry about any soundness problems. He's very, very weak in the back end. You can work on that however you want to work on that. I said, Peter had a couple of machines that really would have helped had we used them. I never used them. He used them once or twice. I never used them, but I'm sure they would have helped. I would have. I got to the point where it was like a losing battle. Why spend all day there with these machines that would definitely help when I knew what the problem was? And the machines, I mean, he could have had super muscles back there, and it wasn't going to help. So we gave the horse to the trainer, and the horse finished up the track both times. And thank God the horse got claimed. And I was only wishing the best for the horse. If I had the money myself, I would have claimed the horse, and I just would have retired him to a nice home. However, the horse raced. And he won. Since we got rid of him, he won 3 races. I've been watching his replays. And the last 2 races that he raced like a real good horse in 10,000 and 12,000 claimers. He left real good. He followed, and then he come charging at the end. And I can only say this. I think I know what I'm doing. And I will say this too. I train thousands of horses, and there's thousands of people that listen to this podcast that know of me in the horse business, and they can all say, even the Hall of Famers that were on here, they can all say that I was good at what I did. This has never happened to me before. And the reason I'm saying this is basically to apologize to Peter for me not doing my homework, and we would have been better off claiming a $20,000 or $30,000 claimer in New York, and I'm sure that we would have had a lot better success. But where we were was the bottom of the barrel, and then I believe the guy who had the horse, who trained the horse during his earlier success, is the guy that has him now. And from what I understand, well, I won't even get into that, but he's doing very well with the horse. And if there's such a thing as having a key to a horse, he has it, because, but I think I know what it is, but I could be wrong. So that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that. I had to get it out. I had to explain to Peter that, because even I remember the phone call when we first claimed the horse. He was on the phone with his son, who's going to be a professional hockey player very soon. And his son, he says, "We're going to claim Assad, not the other one." And the son says, "What? What are you, crazy?" or something like that. And sure enough, it worked out that everybody was right except me, the great trainer, and all the nice accolades he gave me in this letter. But anyway, it just goes to show that even I screw up. Okay, now that that's out of the way, that's it. Thank God. I tell you though, I watched him. I watched the race. It's 2 races, and he looks good out there. He looks great. He's sound, and he come charging at the wire. And but the only thing I told, and I don't think I mentioned this, when we gave the horse to the other trainer, the leading trainer, I says, the only thing I couldn't do, and I says, this is going to be a problem for you because I tried everything. Don't give him any more iron. I loaded him up, and it's he can't handle anymore. I says his blood count won't go higher than 7 million. He says, well, they're using synthetic epigen around here. It's going crazy. Everybody's using it. Now, I'm not accusing anybody that's using it. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying there's some horses that have a key to them that and this horse obviously does. But he tried to raise the blood too. He kept me informed, and because I was interested. And it's no big deal that how to raise the blood. That there's not a million ways to do it. And what I did didn't work. So that's the story. The windup was I wind up leaving. We gave the horse to another trainer. The other trainer didn't do well, but he got him claimed for $5,000. Since then, probably a year ago, I guess, almost a year, the horse won 2 races, and his last 2 races he looked like a real good horse, and I'm happy for the horse. And that's it. Now we can talk about, and also I just want to say this too. We already have a bunch of comments here. We already have a bunch of comments in the comment section, and I just want to say this, Peter. Then the show is yours. I just want to say this. The comments here, they're all my friends, and we all become friends over the years. And it became like a social club, because after I talked about my book, we just kid around here and we fool around. And a lot of times I respond to a lot of these questions that come up, and which have nothing to do. But every once in a while, I have a serious person on here, like all the Hall of Famers that come on, people like Peter that come on. I can't be paying attention to the social club that's in the comments. They're all my friends. They all say hello to these. The other day there was 90 things on here. Everybody, hello, how's your mother? How's your father? And when I have people like Peter on here, we're going to have serious discussions. If you have a question, and I'll be looking at the comments, just put question. Anything that Peter is talking about, put question. So when I go down, I don't have to read all of these. Good morning, good evening, hello Eric, hello David, hello this. Like the whole social club there. I'm glad you're there, but I can't always interact with you because of sometimes the serious things we talk about. But if you have any questions for Peter or anything that we're going to talk about, put question so I see the question, and then I will post it, and then me or Peter will answer the question. And that's it. So the first thing I want to ask you, Peter, and I've been talking for 35 minutes and never gave you a shot yet.
Right.
I need to know, and then we'll talk about whatever you want about the horses. I need to know what's the status on the good horse that you had.
We're waiting. We're probably gonna reevaluate probably in the spring, and hopefully he's good. But he, from what I understand, has an injury that very few people have ever seen. He kicked the stall with his back legs, put his leg almost through the stall, and the back hock blew up. And because you can't get a horse off of its legs, he's going to keep moving, and it wouldn't heal. So we tried leaving him at Belmont, hoping that it would heal. He kept watching the other horses go out every day, and he was going insane, just kind of circling inside his stall all day long. So that didn't help. We gelded him, hoping that it'll calm him down. That didn't help. So now we got him at a farm, and just kind of, kind of what we did with Assad, just kind of let him be a horse. And I'm literally giving him a year off and just let him sit there. And if after a year he's good, great. If not, then, we'll retire him somewhere and let him be a horse for the rest of his life, and, get away from the racing.
You have any other horses racing now? I think you said you had one that was just born or something.
Yeah, I got a little one that's turning a year old, obviously in January. I got a 2-year-old that I don't want to race as a 2-year-old. We can get into that, but that to me is the problem with the industry right now. And everyone's spending time, arguing about HISA and what they're doing, but the problem is way beyond them. The problem is we're racing young horses that shouldn't be racing. 2-year-olds should not be on the racetrack. They should be on the racetrack when they're 3. That's my opinion. Probably the majority of the horses that I see as 2-year-olds, they had their growth plates are still open. You're trying to get them ready to sell them as 2-year-olds. You're putting riders on them, and they're not even a year old. They're running at speeds that, people are spending millions of dollars to get a horse that can run a 1/16 of a mile quickly. I've never been in a race that was 1/16 of a mile. So I'm not really sure how much that matters, but we're abusing these horses before they hit the racetrack, and then they get on the racetrack, and then they develop problems, and they blame the trainer, and they blame the owner, and they blame racing, and it has nothing to do with that. It has to do that we're putting babies in a situation where they shouldn't be in. And because, we've taken the focus out of racing and we put it into breeding, and the multimillionaires are making their money breeding these horses, that's going to be a rough game to sell. So, to get them to change that. But, they're spending, hundreds of millions of dollars putting, regular trainers out of business, because we're trying to help these horses that came to us, to these trainers messed up, and, they're trying to figure out a problem that, in my opinion, you'll never figure out unless you allow the horse to properly develop and give it time to be a little horse before, we do it with our kids. There's certain stages that you go through. You don't put a kid at 6 years old and put him under a bench and have him start lifting weights. It doesn't happen. Why are we putting baby horses with riders? And here's the deal. When the horse is racing, you got a 114-pound rider, a 120-pound jockey on his back. When a horse is getting broke, I've seen 170-pound jockeys on their back, and guys who are no longer jockeys and can't keep weight are now breaking these horses. So, I just think we need to change the game in a lot of ways, but that would be an easy fix if we can just make everything 1 year later. Have the Kentucky Derby be for 4-year-olds and have the 3-year-olds run their, you know what I'm saying? Just push everything 1 more year. And I think racing would help the horses a lot. Again, my opinion.
Now you see you guys out there that are listening, and maybe tonight there'll only be maybe 300-400 people. Tomorrow morning, because it's late at night, nobody watches, but in the next month or two, there'll be thousands and thousands of people listening to this. And you just heard what he said. Why would a guy with that knowledge ever call me up and ask me? I mean, everything he said was 100% correct. The only thing is that I could possibly say about that is that if you're gonna race, and I don't think the 2-year-old races will ever go away. What Peter said is 1,000% correct. But if young horses have to race, let me put it a different way. If you saw the way these these yearlings were broken in the thoroughbred industry, you'd never get involved. They have. I'll give you one example, and this is not. It's everyone that's broken is not like this, but 90% of the horses that are broke, they go to a facility that breaks horses. Now, I'll give you an example that I'm aware of. I was aware of. There was a trainer here called Krupe. He was a leading trainer in New Jersey for a lot of years. Every year, leading trainer. And he packed it in, and he bought a big farm, big training facility, and he started breaking yearlings that people bought at the sales for a lot of money. And because he was leading trainer, a big name, he got a lot of horses. And he got a lot of horses. Let's say he got about 150, 160 horses to break. I went out there one time, and there were nine exercise riders. And just like Peter said, they weren't jockey weight. They were all 140, 150, 160 pounds. Now, aside from the weight, if you do the math and you have 150 horses that have to get out and you have 9 riders, how does that happen? And you have maybe 10 grooms. How does that happen? Between the rainy days, the days that they have to take off, and maybe the days that there's just not enough riders, that's why you get a horse back after 4 months, and the guy will say, yeah, they're ready to go 3/8, and they go a quarter of a mile, and they can't go no more. It's just a bad situation. But if that has to happen, if they'll never stop the 2-year-old races, but what they should do is because what Peter says is true. The knees are not closed. There's the lower joint of the hock that don't close for 3-4 years, and they're very, 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 very sensitive and painful as yearlings and as 2-year-olds. And the higher up you go on a horse, that's the part. That's the part that takes the longest to finish up, to tighten up, to like the knees close probably at 2.5, the hocks at 3.5. But the higher you go, and that's where all the weight is, and many times because the back ends of these young horses are so weak. Maybe, just maybe, that's why 70-80% of these thoroughbreds are on their front legs, and maybe that's why buck shins are so they happen with maybe 1 out of 1,000,000 standardbreds have buck shins, and many thoroughbreds, at least when I was in it, have buck shins. So there's a lot of reasons for what Peter says is true, But the other thing that's true is that bones grow stronger with concussion. And if you leave a 2-year-old in a stall, and I don't think Peter's suggesting this, Peter's just suggesting not racing them. But if you leave a two, or maybe breaking them a little longer, breaking them as 2-year-olds. But if you leave a horse in a stall, their bones never harden up. They never get to what they should be. What we do in the standardbreds is we break them, and then probably sometime in December we give them a month off just to catch up to themselves, and that works very, very well. They don't do anything like that. What Peter is suggesting makes a whole lot of sense, but unfortunately will never get done. The only way it will get done is if he does it himself. Buys the killings himself, and he has a trainer that has his own place and breaks them himself, and can control and monitor everything else. But still, when you buy him, if you spend $1 million, you're still not guaranteed a horse that's even going to make the races. So in the thoroughbred business, for all the years I've been in it, with all the big guys, it's remove and replace. They just go, everybody goes the same, whether it's a 700-pound filly or a 1,200-pound colt. It's the same thing. Just go and go and go. So that part, the 2-year-old racing, I agree. Even with the standardbreds, they just, and the biggest problem with the thoroughbreds too is, like I said, the back end is the last part of the horse to get fully developed, and all the pressure goes on the front, and aside from the buck shins, it's the lower joint of the knee that gets a lot of fractures, and a lot of bad things happen. And that's not counting probably the feet that should get thrown into that picture too. But anyway, so that part, you make a lot of sense there, Peter. That part, I don't know who's breaking your 2-year-olds, but I wish you a lot of luck with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that the wrong person is breaking them. They're doing a great job breaking them. I just don't think they should be broken. And no, I don't think a horse belongs in a stall till he's at the racetrack. So, keep those young horses out in the fields running around, and being horses, and developing before. I mean, we're just spending so much money on trying to police this industry, and you can't police it if you start with a broken product. So you got a broken product that comes in, and then they're telling you, here's a broken product that you got. You can't fix it. So you got to just allow it to race. And then when it can't, you can't do nothing. You can't help it. So I think that's a main thing. And obviously the other thing that they could try to fix, instead of spending money on, police, is maybe allow people to use therapeutic things. And instead of spending these millions of dollars, why not have these things available for horsemen? Have, these machines that I paid $20,000 and $30,000 for that are not available. Well, why not have them available for every trainer? Have them have a water tub that a horse can get in and walk in a water treadmill where he doesn't, he can have 2-3 weeks and recover. Why not put this stuff in? And you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, trying to do something that can't be done. So why not look at the problem? Why not, offer a place? I know Naira did it. They bought a farm. Why not offer a place where, a horse could run, and then you take it off and you can give it a couple months off? Why not have, that area available on the racetrack? Have a place and let everybody bring their horses. These horses are spending, an hour a day, and that's if you're lucky, outside of a stall. And they get no time off. So if you've got a multi-million-dollar racehorse, it'd probably get the winter off or the summer off or whatever. But if you're running a $10,000 claimer, you ain't getting any time off. And everyone's trying to make money. And you got, even in New York, I was just looking at a race the other day, and the purse was $150,000. And the guy who won the race made $85,000. And the guy who finished 7th or 8th made $1,200. Why couldn't the guy who finished 6th, 7th, or 8th make enough money to at least break even with his horse. So that way, because in the end, horses are getting abused because there's a lack of money. So a trainer's not getting paid, an owner doesn't have enough money because his horse is not winning, and there's just the money's not there to be able to take care of the horses the right way. So why not increase the purses on the back end? The guy who made 85 grand will still be okay if he made 7, but the guy who made 1,400, it would have been nice if he maybe made $3,000 so he could pay his trainer and at least break even. You can have way more people, bigger cards, and then you just don't allow horses to run more than once a month. But at least if you're going to run, you're going to break even, at least break even. So, but when you don't break even, then you're forced to run the horse maybe sooner than you would like to, and maybe the trainer hasn't got paid, and the trainer's like, all right, I got to run this horse because I need to get paid. So, I saw it from the back. I saw it from all sides, as an owner, as a trainer, and watching other trainers and watching the backside and realizing what the real problem is, and the real problem is, the majority of the people out there are trying to survive in an industry that's getting harder and harder to survive in. So they need to make changes, and the changes that they're making are helping no one. They're hurting people. They're hurting the horses. They're hurting the people that are in charge of these horses. But in the end, they're hurting the horse. And I got involved in this industry because I thought that I can come, and it worked out great. When I first got there, I think I told you the story of how I got involved. I went to Saratoga to watch a conformation. I brought my wife and my kids, and Gary Contessa was running a conformation seminar, whatever you call it, in the backside of his barn. So I was like, all right, I want to see the backside. I'd never seen it. I loved horses, not necessarily racing. I just loved horses. I went to St. John's University growing up, which is, between Aqueduct and Belmont. So a lot of times driving to college, to school, I wouldn't quite make it there. I'd go to the racetrack instead. And I never watched the racetrack. I always sat at the paddock and I just watched the horses, So I wanted to see the back end, and I met Gary. I didn't know how to get involved. I really didn't. I was like, how does somebody get involved in horse racing? I just thought it was just like, crazy elite sport that no one can get involved in. And he's like, well, you can claim a horse. And to make a long story short, he explained to me how to do it. And he said, there's, the $10,000 claimers, and there's 20,000, all the way up to 40,000. And he goes, we'll claim a horse, and then we'll run it. And, so I said, all right, let's do it. So I put together $40,000. We claimed the horse. Her name was Transaction Tax. I can't remember where she finished, but she didn't finish high up. And it was like an 8-person shake, maybe 7 or 8 people. And on paper, it was a great horse, So, we sent my son in with the assistant trainer. And we're like, all right, buddy, go in there and lose the shake. So of course he comes out. We got the horse. I was like, all right, you know what? We got a horse, So after a horse races, they usually give him 2-3 days of doing nothing. And at that point, I was hooked. I was going to the racetrack every single day. God bless Gary. He put up with me. I used to go there and kind of just hang out with him all day long, and mostly I was in his way. And I remember the horse finally went out to the track. We walked out to the track. He came back. And one thing that Gary Contessa, who in my opinion is an awesome trainer, after every day, all the horses would jog on the concrete back and forth. And he had an incredible eye to pick things out. I mean, he saw something, you could bet $1 million that he was right. That's what was wrong with the horse. So I'm hanging out with him at the end of the day, and we're watching the horses, all the horses that went out for that day, jog away from us and then come back to us. And I remember I was standing next to him, and it's my horse's turn, and she jogs away from him, and on the way back, he goes, uh-oh. I said, Gary, what do you mean, uh-oh? He's like, I don't know. I don't like the way she's walking on that leg. I'm like, all right. I said, so, I mean, to me, they all look the same. So I couldn't tell. I mean, she looked fine to me, but I didn't know. So then we called the ultrasound lady to come in and ultrasound, the leg and see what was wrong. So later in the afternoon, she shows up and we're sitting in the stall. And I remember sitting next to her and she had her machine. She set it all up. She put the gel on. She had the ultrasound going. And about 2 or 3 minutes into ultrasounding the tendons, I hear her go, "Uh-oh." I'm like, "All right, what does that mean?" She's like, "Well, I'll talk with the trainer and I'll have him explain it to you." So she went after she finished the ultrasound and she talked to Gary, and Gary brought me in his office and he said, "Well, I got really bad news." So now this is my first horse I've ever owned, and the last $40,000 probably I had. And he's like, "She has a tear in her tendon." He's like, "It's not race ending yet, but it will be." And he said, "You have two choices." I said, "All right." He said, "We can, inject her with something to help her, give her a little bit of time, put her back in the race, that we claimed her from. There was 8 other people or 7 other people shaking with us. Somebody's going to take her. She'll be fine." I said, "All right." I said, "What happens when they take her?" He said, "Well, the game of hot potato is going to start." I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Well, everyone's going to try to pass this horse on, and the last person holding, the hot potato is going to be stuck with the horse." I said, "Well, what does that mean for the horse?" Because again, this is my first time in this game. I don't understand. He's like, "Well, if she doesn't break down on the racetrack, they're going to probably have to retire her." And I said, "So my choice basically is I give her time off or I sign her death warrant, And he's like, "Yeah, I guess if you want to look at it that way." I said, "All right." I said, "Let me sleep on it, because again, I just spent $40,000 and now he's talking about sending her to a farm for 6 months. That's going to take however many dollars that's going to cost. And then she's going to come back and then we're going to need 3 months to retrain her. And there's no guarantee that, after you do all that and spend extra money that she's even going to be able to race again." So I said, "Let me sleep on it." And the next day I showed up and that night I couldn't do it. I was like, "You know what? I can't do it." So I said, "You know what, Gary?" I went back the next day and I said, "Let's send her to the farm." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You know what?" He goes, "I've been a trainer for X amount of years." He goes, "There's no one that's ever told me that." I said, "I can't live with myself. I mean, I got in this game because I love horses. How am I going to kill the first horse that I claimed?" So anyway, we send the horse to the farm, and now I'm showing up to Belmont every day, and I have no horses. So I guess probably a week or 2 weeks into it, this is probably now. So September is when I probably claimed her. So this is probably the end of October, maybe the beginning of November. And Gary's probably like, "Why is this kid showing up every day?" I would show up every day, every single day. And I had no horses on the grounds and I had no reason to be there except to annoy Gary. So he's like, "Listen," he goes, "maybe I can get you 5% of a horse or 10% of a horse. So at least you have something to come to." And I was like, "Honestly, Gary, I'm not very good with partners." I said, I don't see like the way horses are being treated, what I want to do. So I don't want a partner that is going to be against me doing what I want to do. So he's like, "All right." I go, "What's the cheapest horse I can claim?" He's like, at the time it was $10,000. So I said, "All right, well, let's try to get one of those." So I think in November, maybe, we claimed a horse called Bar Nut for $10,000. So that was horse number 2. And then, so this horse is now getting ready to hit the racetrack. And then I get a call from Gary, maybe a couple of weeks after we claimed Bar Nut, maybe it was 3 weeks. And he said, "You got to find $25,000. I'm like, "Why, Gary? I just spent 50 grand. He said, "You got to find 25 grand. I said, "Why?" He said, "There's a horse called Mighty Zealous." He goes, "I've trained this horse before. This horse is a great horse." He goes, "You need to get this horse. They're dropping him I've had this horse. I know there's nothing wrong with him. You need to get this horse. I said, all right, let me see what I can do. So I got the money together. And we again, the shake was probably between 7 and 9 people. It was a massive shake for this horse. And I ended up getting Mighty Zealous. So now this is my third horse, and the horse that changed everything for me. I think over the next 3 months, this horse made about $180,000. So it changed the whole dynamic. So now I own 3 horses, 1 at a farm, 2 at the racetrack. And it allowed me to start buying stuff for the horses. So now I never used this money. I never needed it. It was always horse money. And I started buying machines. I bought a Magna Wave that was $20,000. I bought lasers. I bought blankets, whatever I knew that regular athletes were using, I wanted to buy for the horses. And Gary had the machine at the vibrating plate, so he already had that. So this horse now allowed me to claim other horses. So I think I ended up claiming about 10 horses total in my first year. So we would take these horses, and I wouldn't bother Gary in the morning at all. He would do what he wanted to do, and I would show up. At that point, I was showing up at 12 o'clock. And I hired one of his grooms, Frankie. And me and Frankie would spend from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day doing therapy on horses. That's all we did. I'd come in at 12. He'd finish his morning probably by 10 o'clock in the morning. On 10:30, he'd go home, shower, eat lunch, and then he was mine for 6 hours. And we had, at the time, probably 6 horses, 8 horses. I mean, I was claiming like crazy now because I had all this money and we got all these horses. And I started winning races for fun. And Gary's like, be careful because the game's not supposed to be this easy. I think I wrote down here somewhere. My first year, I won 12 races and made a little over $700,000 racing. And I had no clue what I was doing. I knew nothing about horses. I just knew that if I treated them different and I gave them supplements, I gave them, I was big on supplements, big on feeding them the right stuff, big on, making sure that they had ice boots on every day, making sure that, they came off and I was using the Magna Wave machine every single day on every single horse we had. If the horse didn't have a Magna Wave on, he had a blanket on. If he didn't have a blanket on, he was standing on top of the vibrating plate. So we did that with the horses. So every horse was getting about an hour and a half of therapy a day, an hour a day, 5 days a week. And the weekends we'd kind of relax and race. So the game was different for me because I didn't understand the whole trainer part. I didn't understand the backside of the game that kind of turned me a little off of the game when I became a trainer and figured out that it's not as easy as people think it is. It's a tough game. And then, when you're going 5 o'clock in the morning to work or 7, after you're done with the track and after you're done feeding the horses, to put in another 6 hours, to do therapy started not becoming the norm. And the norm started becoming, let's get the vet to look at the horse. And I started falling into what I didn't like about the game. I guess maybe because I got lazy or maybe I kept the horses. Everyone told me I used to keep my horses too long, but I fell in love with these horses. I claimed them, I took care of them every day, and I didn't understand that, the claiming game, these horses were coming to me probably injected multiple times in every joint they had. And, Gary Contessa could vouch for this, that I was so against vets that I wouldn't let him touch like my horses. But I would go ballistic if I knew he stuck a needle in one of my horses, So and nothing against vets, because obviously they, without the vets, this game wouldn't happen. But I just thought there was another way. And obviously, people that are in this game can't spend the amount of time that I had to go, and there's no trainer that's going to be able to spend. They're going to have to charge $6,000 a horse a month to be able to pay somebody to do what I was doing with my horses. But I paid the guy extra for helping me, and I was down there doing it every day. And at one point, I had 2 guys working with me, but we were making money. We were winning races for fun. We were winning big races. I was claiming horses for $20,000, and we were running for 40. I mean, I claimed this horse from Todd Pletcher, which is probably the horse that made me love this game, which is this horse. His name, he's back here somewhere, right here. So that's Bon Raison. Behind me is Mighty Zealous, and that's the guy that I have right now, Wartax. So Bon Raison, we claimed from Pletcher in Saratoga. I was actually in Greece watching, trying to figure out who we can claim in Saratoga, because everyone knows that's where you want to claim a horse, because the multimillionaires who were looking for those grade 1 stake horses and they didn't get it, they just want to get rid of the horse, so they could have paid $350,000 for this horse if it wasn't what they were looking for. It was in a $16,000 claiming race, and that's the race it was in. It was a non-winner of 2 for $16,000. And I was watching the replays, and I noticed that every time he got behind the horse, or when that dirt kicked up, he kind of like moved back a little. So I'm like, all right, this horse might not be that bad. He might just be afraid of the dirt, and he's just got, he just got a bad vibe that he can't run. So I was like, all right, let's try to claim him. We end up claiming the horse for $16,000, and I come back from Greece, and I remember this with Gary Contessa. We put him in a $32,000 claim race. So I got him for $16,000. He was in a $32,000, and I remember arguing with Gary, going, I don't want to put him in a claiming race, because you know how good a horse is when the exercise riders come back and they go, oh my God, this horse, Gary had a lot of, like Irad and Jose Ortiz and Rosario, and these guys were riding the horses in the morning for us, and they would come back and be like, you got a nice horse there, kid. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think we should put this horse up for a claim. He's like, listen, you paid $16,000 for this horse 3-4 weeks ago. Nobody's giving you $32,000 for a horse a month later. I'm like, all right, I'll listen to you. So we're in the paddock, and 10 minutes before, you have up till 10 minutes before the race starts to claim a horse, for people that don't know. And then the trainers, what they do is they come to the paddock and they watch the horse walk round and round, and then they go and they drop their slip. So I remember looking, and I see Jeremiah Engelhart looking at my horse, and I'm like, Gare, who's that? I didn't know him at the time. He's like, oh, that's Jeremiah Engelhart. I was like, he's staring at my horse. He's like, I was like, Gare, he's looking at my horse the way I was looking at horses that I wanted to claim. He's like, all right, he's a good friend of mine. Let me call him. So as we're leaving the paddock, he calls him on the phone, and he's like, hey, I saw you, you're looking at the horse. You put a claim in. And he said, honestly, Gare, he goes, the claim is filled out and it's in my back pocket. I didn't have the balls to drop it. He goes, nobody claims from Pletcher, So the horse ends up running. I think Joel Rosario rode him. I don't remember who rode him. He won for fun. All right. And that was the last time that horse saw a claiming race, till I finished all his conditions. And then I think eventually he ended up with the person that bred him. And I think they took him from me for $80,000. And I think we won 12 or 13 races just with that horse. And, it was my first horse that I won as a trainer. I mean, the horse was just one of those horses that, come once in a lifetime. And I think he ran in the Breeders' Cup for the other people. But at that point, I had started training myself, which was a massive mistake. I was with a lot of good trainers, Gary Contessa, Carlos Martin, Wayne Potts, all phenomenal trainers. And probably, most of the trainers that I've come across are awesome at their job. I was not a good trainer. I wasn't, I wanted nothing to do with the politics of the game. I wanted nothing to do with anything but the horse. And when you're a trainer, you got to deal with a lot of bullshit, from making sure, I's are dotted, your T's are crossed. So and then the jockey thing too. Just a quick story on that. I don't want to name any names, but I had a very good jockey riding my horse, Bon Raison. And then when I became a trainer on my own, so I went from Gary Contessa to Carlos Martin, and the deal was with Carlos that he was going to help me get my trainer's license, and he did. And he's probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life, and we're still great friends, and I love him to death. And when I got my trainer's license and now I was running on my own, I wanted to put that same jockey on my horse, and his agent called me and said, "That's not going to happen." So what do you mean? He's not riding anybody, He's like, "Yeah, but who are you?" I was like, "What do you mean?" Now, meanwhile, I know this guy. He knows me. I'm there every day with with the trainers and in the back, so they know who I am. I'm like, "What do you mean? Who am I?" He's like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "Peter Tournas." He's like, "No." He goes, "You're not understanding me." He's like, "I have a top-notch jockey, and he rides for big outfits." He goes, "What are people going to think if he's riding your horses?" I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "I never really thought about that, But he pretty much told me that my jockey, who rode he was probably on 50% of my wins, and I probably won 30 something races so far. I think 32, 33 since I started. And he was probably on half of them, and he wasn't riding my horse. Not because of the jockey, because he has, obviously, he's got nothing to do with it. It's his agent. Because I wasn't, a Carlos Martin or a Gary Contessa or a Pletcher or a Linda Rice or, and I thought it was messed up. So not that the other jockeys aren't good, but I would have to use apprentice jockeys because those are the only ones that I can get. And not that they're not good; they're great kids. But it's like having a great high school quarterback while Tom Brady's sitting on the bench. Eventually, this high school quarterback might end up being better than Brady, but at the time, you want Tom Brady, and I had Tom Brady on my horses, and now I didn't have him anymore. So that was a big wake up call for me. So that's, and then and I came to you because I wanted to figure out how to look at a horse myself and understand what was wrong with it and how to fix it without involving the vet, without and that's a really tough answer to try to figure out on a racetrack. So that's my horse story.
All right. Well, let me just fill in a couple of gaps, and then we'll get into the real good stuff. The first thing is I'm not sure if the word for that agent that told you what he told you, I'm not sure if that word is in the dictionary, but it might be in the beginning. In the word that would best describe him as an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but listen, I get it. The reason I don't get it is because he knows I was at the racetrack every day. I went to the track. I went to the workouts every day with the jog. I watched my horses run around the track. I did the same thing that everyone else did. And just because I didn't have, the name, and if his jockey, I get it. If you were going to ride, if you had to pick between me and Todd Pletcher, I would pick Todd Pletcher. If I had to pick between me and Gary Contessa, I would pick Gary Contessa. But if you had to pick between me and not riding the race, right, I had a problem.
That's why he's an asshole.
Yeah, so that's when I had a problem. Not because he chose somebody else. But, if he said, "Listen, Todd Pletcher wants me to ride his horse," I'd be like, "I get it." Todd Pletcher has 500 horses. I had 10.
Many of the top jockeys, because of their agents, they're committed to many big stables. And and just like you said, if this agent said, "Look, I'd love to ride him. He gets along good with your horse. He won a lot of races with him, but I'm committed to so and so." but he had no other horses in there. And not only that, but if he worded it the way he worded it to you, the guy's an asshole. And maybe I
Well,
shouldn't.
that's the way he worded it.
But if he worded the way you said it, he's an asshole, because it's a nicer way to say. There is no nice way. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it. Anyway,
He was just trying to explain to me what. I don't think he meant it in a bad way. I think he was just trying to explain to me the realities of my situation. You know, and again, like I said, he was a nice guy, and the jockey is a great jockey, and there's nothing against him. I get it. Business is business. But you know, at the time, I had a great horse that had, you know, I had the likes of these elite jockeys on him. I mean, this horse won the Tail of the Cat in Saratoga. He was a $16,000 claimer, and he beat some big time horses. And I think Irad rode him that day. And I think the horse got more of the injustice than I did. I think when he was, you know, when he wasn't winning races, I think some of these the better jockeys. I mean, I don't want to say the word better, you know, because there's some great young jockeys, and you know, just like me, you know, they have it rough. You know, they're trying to make their way up the ladder too, and they get the short end of the stick too. You know, they're out there every day exercising horses, and then when it comes time, you know, to put a jockey on, they put somebody else on that's a better name or whatever. So I get it, because, you know, like, I've talked to these guys, and we kind of, I guess, cried together about our situation. But, you know, it's a rough game, and you live and you learn. And if I could change it all again, I would stay the way I got involved in the game. Doing, like, letting the trainers train the horses and let me do what I love to do, was the therapy part, the nutrition part.
well,
You know,
now that you're going on, because you have a couple other horses, you said, what you just spoke for about 40 minutes, and everything that you said was the 100% true. It's a fucking bullshit game. It's a bullshit game. I shouldn't talk bad about trainers, but I've been in the game, and I've been around them, and it's just a different game than the standardbred game. The standardbred people are true horse people. The thoroughbred guys are suit and tie. 99% is political, from the race office to the backstretch, and the smaller guys. You have no shot. And in my opinion, you have no shot. You're behind the 8 ball from the time you buy a horse. The claiming game is the easiest way to get in, the fastest way to get in, the way you could eliminate a lot of bullshit and a lot of the politics. But it's the wrong game to get in, because you can't make you got to be very, very lucky to stay in the claiming game. And because, especially today, because of tremendous shortage of horses, you make a good claim and you win one race, and even if you move them up 2 or 3 times, somebody's going to take them, only because of tremendous shortage of horses. So the claiming game is a tough game. The yearling end of the game, you got to start off as a billionaire to wind up as a millionaire, and that's a saying that's been told a long time, because it's true. The people that have the best shot, in my opinion, was the person I was going to go with when I started this. I started a syndication years back, was Linda Rice, and the only reason I picked Linda Rice was because she has her family that breaks the yearlings that she buys. It's a perfect setup for her. And she's a good trainer. She pays attention, sometimes too much attention, but she pays attention. And so but other than that, you could see, because I have a friend of mine that's in the game that comes on this show all the time, and he's a thoroughbred guy, and he claimed horses from the top guys just like you did. All 16,000 claimers, 20,000 claimers, and improved them all tremendously, because when them guys, not that they're not bad trainers, but they're not competitive when it comes to horsemanship to the standardbred guys. So I'll just say that. But assuming they're the best of what's out there in the thoroughbred industry, with them, they have no choice but to remove and replace. They don't have time. You have 200 horses, 300 horses. They don't have the time to babysit a horse, or if a horse pops a splint, they don't have time for that. If a horse don't show early signs of being a stake horse, they have the owners that just get rid of them. We'll get another one. They have very, very, very wealthy owners. It's a political game, and that's the only reason it's lasting, because it's so political. With very, very powerful people lobbying for that game to go. But there is everything that you said is so true. And if this show, if we were mandated to do a show that lasted from now until next week, I could go into so many things.
Okay, Larry, we could talk for a week about this stuff.
Oh God, I just wrote a letter. To Heisa. I wrote and I no response. I finally made a phone call, and I said, "Listen," I said, "I just listen." I says, "I'm 85 years old." I says, "I've been around a long time." And I says, and I'm really tired of watching these horses get abused by incompetent people. I understand why the government formed your organization. I says, but they did a couple of things wrong. They did it just like they did the people in charge of all these commissions. They put, and I don't mean to insult anybody. I says, but when was the last time you saddled a horse? When was the last time you rode a horse? When was the last time you drove a horse? When was the last time you did anything? Why don't you, and I went on and on and on. And I says, now I want a direct line to the lady that handles that whole organization. You have like 70, 80 people in Heisa. I want a direct line to her. She says, well, you have to go through me first. So I says, okay. So I wrote a letter. I says, I'm going to send you a letter because I don't express, I know what I want to say, but the words don't come out. I don't know how to explain things good. I only know how to do them. So I says, I'm going to write a letter and I'm going to send it to you. And I sent it, and they responded to me last night. Then she says, I got your message. If we go now, if they don't respond to me and they don't have a meeting with me, I am going to absolutely crush that whole organization. After the letter that I wrote, and I should read it right now, but I don't want to get off of your thing. But after the letter I wrote, if they don't get back to me and have a meeting with me, and I says, bring your veterinarians, bring whoever you want to bring. You got 80 people on the payroll. Bring whoever you want to bring, and you'll find that I'm right. I'm 100% right. And if you were formed for the safety of the whole industry, including the equine athlete, that's the key to this whole thing. You have to pay attention to what I'm saying. Now, the only reason I'm going to you first is I need to know how to market what I created. I fixed a problem that you people knew about for 200 years, and nobody can do nothing about it. Nobody did know nothing about it, and it's still going on today. And it's one of the reasons you were put together, this organization put together, and you're still allowing it to happen. So I'm gonna see what happens. But if they don't respond to me, I'm gonna it's gonna be some podcast. I'll give them another week, because she
Well, Larry, if you do have this meeting, I'm curious to know what their thought is about ending 2-year-olds racing. I'm curious to know what the people that are supposedly in charge of the safety and welfare of horses how they feel about running horses with open joints and undeveloped um, undeveloped joints that potentially are causing every single problem that they have. And also, another big thing that might need to be addressed is we're breeding horses right now that, yeah, I mean, back in the day, like let's look at Seabiscuit, for example, since everybody knows who Seabiscuit is. I mean, Seabiscuit was running, once a week, 4 times, a month. They kill, if somebody ran a horse the amount of times that Seabiscuit ran, they would hang them in the middle of Central Park, because we're building more, we're breeding more. These horses are running 3-4 times, and then they're retiring, and they're charging $150,000 to breed to them, and and they're becoming the name. So everybody who has these big outfits, they breed 300 mares to these stallions. That the only thing that they've proven is that they can run 3 or 4 times. They haven't proven that they can run as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old, as a 6-year-old. So they haven't proven that they're able to develop and have good bone structure. I mean, we try to breed dogs, and we have hip tests, and we have all these tests that they do to breed a German Shepherd to another German Shepherd, and it's all done like that. But that stuff is not done in the horse industry. Nobody's looking at, hey, does this horse have developed tendons all the time? Well, maybe we shouldn't breed her, because maybe that's something that she's passing on from horse to horse to horse. But we don't do that. We breed that horse who has a tendon problem, who happened to win the Kentucky Derby 350 times a year for the next 8 years, and develop thousands and thousands of horses that are prone to tendon injuries. So, I mean, listen, no one's going to fix the problems that I see, and probably no one's going to fix the problems that you see. They put Heise out there just to kind of, make the public think that, they're doing the right thing for horses.
I put up this sign every once in a while. I don't know if you can read it or not. There is a big difference between giving up and knowing when enough is enough. And this will be my letter to Heise will be, this will be enough is enough. I give up. I surrender. Sometimes you win fighting an organization. I know why they were formed. They're doing more harm than good, and they don't even know it. And the worst part about it is they have people on there, veterinarians and trainers, that I don't want to say too much. Anyway, sometimes enough is enough, and you can't win. It was like when I was fighting the racing commission. You go in front of you get accused of something, and then you go in front of the same people that accuse you to defend yourself. It's a no-win situation. You can't win. That's why 2-year-old races will always be 2-year-old races, and everything that you have, everything that you said that is the problem with the game is always going to be the problem with the game. It is never ever going to change. But what might change is this letter that I wrote to them. And in fact, you know what? If you want, you think I should read it? You want me to read it?
You're still there. Why not? Why not?
Let me read it to you. I've been working on this for 40 years. Well, I started it when I was at Hialeah, and I watched horses collapse, and it was tough. Anyway, here it is. I'm going to read it. This is what I sent to them. My name is Larry Rolla. I've been in the horse business, both racing thoroughbreds and standardbreds, for more than 60 years. I'm writing this letter for 2 reasons. The first is to express my deep concern regarding the continued practice, a practice that I've witnessed during my years, of allowing thoroughbred races to proceed during periods of extreme heat and humidity, conditions that often always exceed the safety thresholds outlined in racetrack bylaws and heat stress guidelines. Not only did I witness this practice, I saw the predictable outcome, including heat stress, heat stroke, organ damage, brain fry, heart attacks, collapse, and death. I witness this strategy every year at every major racetrack in the country. We all know that the safety thresholds in place today were not, are not, and will not be enforced by most racetracks, if not all. Heat and humidity and racing are a recipe that produces bad results. Results some know, but nobody wants to talk about. In the world we live in today, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. That was my phone. In the world we live in today, it's hard to believe the only data that is not available around the world today is reflecting how many horses, thoroughbreds, die or have died from heart attacks every year caused by heat, stress, or stroke. Not even the Jockey Club has any public data that isolates heart attack deaths. They're all considered sudden death or labeled sudden death or non-accident causes. Many are reported as unexplained, sudden, unexplained, or undetermined, and it's just amazing and unbelievable to me. The second reason for this letter is to set up a meeting with you and your team whenever you're in New Jersey, New York area, for the purpose of showing my patented solution to this very serious problem and the scientific studies, sources, and facts that back it up. I await your response. Now, this is something that they can do. They can fix. Everything that you're suggesting they fix is right, but it's never going to get done.
Not going to happen, right?
If this don't get done, then I'm just going to expose them for and I don't want to say for what they are, because so far there's a decline in the amount of horses breaking down. There's a decline in everything they were forced to do. But in the meantime, there's a decline in a lot of other areas too. And it's because of them. And who's getting hurt when they slam the door on all of these things that they think they're helping is the racehorse. If you think that an athlete, a thoroughbred, and you were right what you said about Seabiscuit and racing, racing once every maybe 10 days or 12 days, or and today the average thoroughbred races 7 times a year, 8 times a year. I mean, it's insane. And why? I don't want to get into that, because it's important that we get into the horse stuff. We can talk about this horse stuff from now until Christmas, and I have so much to say, and I'm really going to explode if they don't get back to me. I'm really going to expose this, because there's over 2,000 horses a year that die. I guarantee half of them die because of heat. Everybody says even the heart attacks are. How do you know that the horse didn't have a heart attack and when he was falling he snapped the bone? Do you know why horses get heart attacks? Do you know what happens when a horse goes into a race before they even reach the 3/4 pole or the mile pole? Their core body temperature is 105. You know what happens at 106 and 107? Death. That's what happens. I can go on and on and on, but I won't. So we're going to talk. That's enough about horses, unless you have something else to say about horses.
Well, they definitely know that that's a problem, because if you go to Aqueduct now, back then we had the horses would come off the racetrack and there'd be one hose to hose your horse off, and then most people wouldn't even do it because they didn't want to wait. They'd walk into the paddock where there was one other hose. Now, if you go to the racetrack, there's probably 10 hoses. And every horse, when they get done, are getting sprayed. So they're aware that there's definitely a problem. I don't know if they know what.
But you see, here's the other problem with that. With that, and you're right what you said. At Hialeah 30 years ago, when I was there, they were 15 hoses right where you unsaddle the horse after the race. And the reason I got into this was because during that day, it was right before they had the swan. Every day, race day after the seventh race, they have the swans fly, and they postpone the race for about a half hour. And just before that happened, a horse dropped in the race. Just top of the stretch, just start wobbling, losing its action, and then just dropped. They went out there with pails and everything else, and the horse wound up walking off. Obviously, heat stroke. At the same time, two other horses that were unsaddled were dropped right there and were revived. I have film showing this, and when you hose the horse off, that's the worst thing that you can do unless you scrape the water off immediately. Because the water stays right there, just like the humidity. It just bakes into them. And the worst part of all of that is that the core temperature might be 105, 106, but the brain temperature is 2 degrees hotter than the core temperature. And then on and on and on and on and on. And I've been doing this now and I could never get any further than what I got right now. But I figured now they might come up with the real thing that I needed by the time I'm 100, but there's no guarantee I'm going to live to be 100. I can't get a hold of Elon Musk or whatever his name is, that billionaire guy.
Elon. Yeah,
I can't get a hold of him. So I'm doing the best I can. And what I have right now will work. It will work. But I will always be looking to, and there's only, the next step is the ultimate. I have the semi-ultimate. In other words, I can't get to Saturn, but I can get to the moon. So that's where I'm at. And I put a lot of time and a lot of work. I have boxes and boxes full of research. I keep calling the same people and the same veterinarians that did these tests. And they didn't just do it on a treadmill. They surgically implanted sensors in each part of the horses, in the muscles, and deep in the horses, even in the brain stem of the horse. And I have all the tests, I have all the numbers, I have all the figures, and it's a serious problem that nobody pays attention to. And so we're going to see if they pay attention. And the reason I sent them this letter was because my next step is to market this thing. Now, if they make it mandatory, like they should, because if they care about the horses, they should make it mandatory that every trainer has to race every horse with what I created. If they don't make it mandatory, but are going to allow it, then I will find a production company and I will produce it and I will market it myself. So I don't want to market it myself if they're going to make it mandatory, because it'd be a waste of time.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. That's enough about the horses. We can go back and talk about those some other time, but let's talk about your thing. I put up that 1 minute clip a little teaser. And like I said, there's friends of mine watching that want to hear this. They don't want to hear about this horse bullshit. So I'm going to put that 1 minute thing on, and then we'll talk about what you're involved with now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3, Live Long, Live Life. What is diabetes, and what's the difference between diabetes and insulin resistance? In this video, we will look at the cause of diabetes and not just a symptom. Diabetes is a symptom of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is also a symptom, and we will talk about what it is a symptom of. You'll be shocked to learn what is really behind diabetes. Before we can heal our bodies, we need to understand what it is we are trying to do. If you don't know what diabetes is, then how can you fix it? If you don't know what causes diabetes, then all you can do is treat the symptom, which is high blood sugar. Hopefully, when this video is over, you'll be upset at your doctor, upset at the pharmaceutical companies, but more importantly, upset at the system that's producing sick people that are lining up as lifetime customers of Big Pharma. You will wonder why your doctor didn't tell you this. Maybe it's because he or she doesn't know. Or maybe there's another reason. Doctors are taught to prescribe drugs to treat symptoms. That's it. They have no other job. Okay, let's dive in.
Okay, now I got a lot of people want to hear what you have to say, including myself. And like I said in the beginning, whatever you get into, you dive into it head first, and you don't open your mouth until you have all the research and everything else. And like I said before, you know that I'm on that ivermectin, and I know that I heard your first podcast, and I have friends of mine that listen to the last 3 podcasts you have, and it's very, very interesting, especially now. The more you hear about Dr. Kennedy, that's now exposing a lot of probably what you're finding out now. So anyway, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And if you could tell them how and where to get to your station, tell them whatever you want to tell them, and how to get to your stuff, and what the future holds for you in this area. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's important to understand like how I started, why I started, why I went to the doctor, why I decided that maybe I need to look at another alternative. So my family history is, my father had diabetes. He passed away about 10 years ago. My mother has diabetes, along with high blood pressure and all the fun stuff that I inherited from them. So I went to the doctor initially because, I mean, obviously I knew what to do for diabetes. I was on metformin. I was on another pill for diabetes. I had my high blood pressure pills. I had a prescription for Xanax, and that was the biggest problem that I had. The one I couldn't live with was the panic attacks. And just to give you an example, I never even told you this, but you remember when we had a plan that I was going to spend time at your house, and then we're going to get up in the morning and go to the track together and all that fun stuff. You remember that, Larry?
Yeah.
I made it one night, and the reason, I made up an excuse of why I didn't want to do that. But the main reason was that night I had probably one of the biggest panic attacks I've had in quite a while. I was up pretty much all night. I think maybe I slept an hour. And unless you've had a panic attack, it's the craziest feeling in the world. There's no reason it comes on. It started, I used to smoke. So I smoked all the way up till my son was about a year old. And then I quit cold turkey. And from what I understand from reading, like alcohol, cigarettes, pot, whatever, you have a fight or flight, thing going on in your head. And, you need something to kind of calm your nerves. And cigarettes used to do it for me. If I, have a bad day, I'd have a cigarette. Other people have a drink. Some people smoke pot, whatever your thing is. And then once I quit smoking, since I don't drink and I don't do drugs, I didn't have anything else. And I started getting massive panic attacks. Like I would be driving the car on the highway, and I'd be up and coming up to traffic. And to give you an idea, I would park my car in traffic. I would get out, leave my car in the middle of the highway, and walk into the woods. Because I didn't know what to do. Like, your body wants to run, but you don't know where you want to go. So again, I used, in my first podcast of being attacked by a bear and having that adrenaline rush and that fight or flight. And it's never a fight. It's always a flight response. And I would have that. I couldn't go to sleep because it would take me forever to close my eyes because I would be tired, but I'd lay down and then I would start thinking about the world. And then somehow I'd go to sleep. I'd put like my earbuds in and I would listen to your podcast and I would eventually go to sleep, but then 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I would just wake up and almost levitate from my bed because I would just jump out of bed and I would just in like I gotta run mode. So I needed to fix that part of my life. I was starting to take Xanax. I was probably taking a half a pill. So I was always scared of being addicted to drugs, and whether you're addicted to cocaine or Xanax, sometimes it's better to be addicted to the street drugs than it is to be addicted to the prescription drugs. And those people, if you know anybody on opiates or whatever, painkillers, those people. I had a friend who ended up dying because he just went from painkillers to heroin to you name it. So I didn't want to be that guy. So I would try to figure it out, and I would probably pop a half a Xanax, and I would get to sleep, and then a couple of days would go by, and I wouldn't have a panic attack. Then I had one. But to make a long story short, that's why I wanted to go to the doctor. I heard about Lexapro. I have family cousins that are on it, and they said it worked great for them. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'll do anything. I will do anything to feel normal, to be able to go to sleep at night, wake up in the morning. So meanwhile, I'm battling diabetes, and I would finger prick, so I'd get up in the morning and I'd finger prick because that's what my mom and dad do. And I would check, and my fasted blood glucose in the morning time. So that's going 10, 11 hours, 10 hours without eating, would be over 200. And that's taking metformin, and that's taking my diabetic medication. And then around, if I ate anything, which, obviously, the life we led there, you go to fast food, we're eating Popeye's chicken, it's hard to have a healthy lifestyle when you're on the go. So if I would eat something like a Dunkin' Donut, coffee, and a sandwich, and I'd finger prick myself, I'd be in the 400 range. And I started getting really scared. So I saw about CGMs, and I knew somebody who was a type 1 diabetic who'd wear a CGM and monitor their blood. And I was like, you know what? I don't even really understand what food does to me. I know a donut is bad or having a muffin is bad, but how bad is it really? I didn't understand any of that. And I know that's kind of dumb. We always hear don't have sugar. Well, we don't realize how many things have sugar. If you go into a supermarket, I would say 98% of the stuff inside a supermarket has sugar. So anyway, I put this CGM on. I did the research to figure out which one was the best. And I put it in. The idea came to me before Thanksgiving, but I wanted to wait till after Thanksgiving. I wanted to, have one more holiday where I could eat stuffing and gravy and not have machines beeping all over the place. So I waited till I think it was 2 days after Thanksgiving, and I put the CGM in. So November, whatever it was, the end of November, and I started, and I knew that I wanted to go to the doctor, but I had Xanax. My mother had Xanax. We had Xanax. I had enough Xanax to be able to skate to my doctor's appointment. So I was like, all right, I'm going to put the CGM on, and I'm going to try to have somewhat of a normal blood sugar. And if this sounds crazy, I didn't want to go to my doctor and kind of look like that loser diabetic guy that can't control himself, So I started watching what I ate, and so this thing has like a beeper, so you could set your parameters. Like if it goes below 70, it'll beep. If it goes, I believe, above 180, it'll beep. Like your alarm goes off on your phone. So the first week, my wife was like, what the hell is that? I'm like, all right, it's my, I told her what I was doing. And this thing would just be beeping all day long. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't understand this. It's literally beeping all day. So anyway, I figured out through the app there's a way where you could turn the beeping off. So I turned it off, and then I started to watch. Like I would eat scrambled eggs with bacon, and I wouldn't eat any bread, and I would watch my blood sugar, and it wouldn't move at all. But I would eat a bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel, and my blood sugar would go to 450. And I was like, Jesus. And then it would come back, but it would take forever to come back. And then it would sit a little higher than normal. But then, I used to find myself being tired and sleeping on the couch. And so I started doing a lot of research. I started reading everything I could read. I started watching podcasts. There's a ton of them out there on being diabetic, how to fix it naturally. We all know, go to the doctor, get insulin, and you're fixing the problem, but you're not, because the problem isn't being diabetic. The problem isn't your high blood sugar. The problem is insulin resistance and your cell's inability to allow insulin to open that cell door and allow glucose to come in and energize your body. So you need to fix insulin resistance, but insulin resistance isn't the problem, because insulin resistance happens because of the toxins that we put into our body, of the parasites that we may have in our body, of the extra fat that we're carrying around our body, and these signals that are coming from your cells and telling these receptors to open these doors up are not happening because of all this bad stuff that's happening in your body. So I knew the first thing I had to figure out was how to lose weight. And we all know how to lose weight, and everyone's been on a diet for 2 weeks and they lost 20 pounds, and then the diet's over, and then they go back to being normal, and then they put on the 20 pounds and add 5 more, So it was around January, a little after, January 2nd. I made a pact with myself, and I had started seeing about walking, and I never thought walking was exercise. You know what I'm saying? Like I pictured exercise being going to the gym, lifting weights, running, just activity that is going to be straining and whatever. And I started to hear about, hey, try to walk 10,000 steps a day. And on your phone, I'm sure you know this, it tracks your steps. And I always have my cell phone in my pocket somewhere. And I was looking at my last year, and there was like days that I would walk 1,000 steps, days that I wouldn't even walk 1,000 steps. So I was like, all right, 10,000 steps, how hard can that be? So I'd get up in the morning, and again, I wasn't there yet. I didn't know then what I know now. And I would get up in the morning, and then I would get on a treadmill maybe, or just walk around my day, and I would try to get to 10,000 steps. And then most of the time it was at night. I'd figured out, all right, you know what? I have 3,000 steps to go, and I'm going to go downstairs on the treadmill, turn the TV on, and get to my 10,000 steps. So no matter what, I said, I'm going to do my 10,000 steps. At the time, I weighed 255 pounds. I almost didn't do this whole thing, because I didn't want to put my before picture up on the screen. I didn't want, like we wear clothes and you can hide a lot of stuff, wearing big shirts and jeans and jackets and whatever. So in my first podcast, somewhere in the middle over there, thank God you didn't find it and put it up here, is a before picture, and then there's the after pictures. So basically I had a nice belly, nice pair of man boobs. My wife told me that, now she looks back at some of the old pictures and she's like, I didn't realize your face was so fat. And I was like, all right, so I didn't, you don't realize where you're at, because it happens gradually. It happens, you're 200, then you're 210. And I was going 255, but I know I had seen 260. And when you're at 260, 300 is just around the corner. And when your blood sugar is probably, A1C is probably the 8s, 11s, and 12s aren't too far away. When your blood pressure is, 130, 140 over 95, 100, heart attacks aren't too far away. When you're having massive panic attacks, pretty much all the time, being addicted to Xanax. Actually, they have on Netflix, they have an awesome film about Xanax and what Xanax has done to a lot of people. It messes you up. So Xanax is really, really bad for you. And doctors don't even want to prescribe it anymore. Of course, everyone's already hooked on it. So now people have to figure out other things. But so I wanted to get to my doctor and kind of be respectable. And I was doing this, eating, walking. I started to learn about fasting. So that was a big change for me because I started to understand that your pancreas, that makes insulin, needs a break. So your normal day, or my normal day used to be, I get up in the morning, and go to breakfast, and breakfast was, Dunkin' Donuts, and you go in the drive-thru and you grab your coffee and, our muffin or our sausage and cheese, and we drive to work and sitting down, we eat our very high carb breakfast. And then we get to work and hopefully somewhere between breakfast and lunch, you eat a snack. And then you go have lunch, and most of the time lunch is, let me drive somewhere, grab a deli sandwich, and a bag of chips and a Coke, have that for lunch. By mid-afternoon, you're crashing now because your body has so much glucose and so much crap inside it. You're looking for a little Hershey bar or Snickers or something to get you to dinner. And then I'd go home and have dinner, and dinner would be, whatever. My wife doesn't really cook a lot. She laughs. She says I never didn't marry her for her cooking skills, which I didn't. But we order out a lot. So Chinese, pizza, whatever. That was dinner. And then what do you do after you eat dinner? You sit on the couch. After an hour, because you're crashing again, you go to open up the cabinet, you grab a bag of chips, to finish watching TV, and then you go to bed and you start again. And what this does to your body is your body's now is full of insulin all day long. There's no break. Your body's constantly trying to get rid of that glucose. And because you're not burning the glucose, your body's going to store the glucose. And another thing happens when there's an abundance of insulin. If you have an abundance of insulin, your body can't burn anything else. So a lot of insulin is telling your body, hey, we need to burn glucose and we need to store fat. So what your body's doing now is storing the excess glucose, it's storing the fat, and in a nutshell, making you even sicker. So being type 2 sometimes is worse than being type 1, because type 1, your body's not producing insulin. So if you can figure out the right amount of insulin to give yourself, you can kind of lead a normal life. But if you don't understand type 2 diabetes and your body's producing insulin and it's producing too much insulin or not enough insulin, it's throwing every mechanism in your body off. And every disease that you can think of starts from having too much sugar in your body, right? So that's going to lead to dementia. It messes up the vessels. So heart vessels, your brain vessels, dementia, Alzheimer's, forgetting stuff, you name it, it's because you're not giving your body a break. So what I do now is I eat from noontime till 7 o'clock at night. 7 o'clock at night is my last meal of the day. And I try in the morning time not to eat carbs just so I can keep my body in fat burning. And what happens is when your body doesn't have glucose, it has to burn something for fuel. So it develops ketones and it forces your body to burn fat for fuel. It'll burn protein as well. So if you do eat bacon in the morning, even though there's no carbs, there's protein, it will burn protein, but protein, it prefers glucose. It takes longer for your body to burn protein and turn it into glucose. And not all protein. So there's a few, protein goes into your body and then it gets broken up into amino acids. And there's only a few of those amino acids that can turn into glucose. So yeah, your body can burn that. But after that's gone, your body needs fuel. And your body will always get its fuel. And it will start to burn muscle and it will start to burn fat. You want it to burn fat. You don't want to burn your muscles. So you want to try to get your body into fat burning mode, I call it. So at 7 o'clock at night, I'm done eating. And if we're out in town with the wife, we'll go for a nice walk after. If not, sometimes we just drive into town just to go for a walk and just kind of half hour, 45 minutes, just go for a walk. At 10 o'clock at night, I get on the treadmill. I have my thing on, and when my glucose goes under 95, I'm done for the day. So now by 10 o'clock, 10:30, my body's in fat burning mode. There's no more glucose. I might even do a little bit of sprinting to get, what happens when your body runs out of glucose, it calls your liver to drop its reserves for, same with horses, it drops its reserve, and you got, some extra glucose to burn. And when that's done, you got nothing left in your body. So then your body starts to produce ketones. So I try to get into fat burning mode after my walk on the treadmill. And then if I'm home, I'll make scrambled eggs with bacon or scrambled eggs with sausage or whatever, no bread, no nothing, and try to stay in fat burning till lunch. And then for lunch, usually I'm out and about. I try to eat like maybe a chipotle. I try not to have bread, so I'll have brown rice. I might have a salad. I try just not to have bread. Just because most of the time I'll eat and I can't really do a lot of walking because I have work to do. Or I'm sitting in front of a computer. So if I'm going to sit, I try not to eat carbs. So, I've had the video. Most of the walks I do is in my backyard. I just walk back and forth. I put a weight vest on. And in the beginning, I had no weight vest. In the beginning, it was a struggle to get to 10,000 steps. Now I usually hit 10,000 steps before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'll go outside, put my weight vest on, listen to music, and just really walk back and forth barefoot on my grass, enjoying the sun for half an hour. So anyway, so then, once you're done and your body's now burning fat, by having this monitor on, I know at all times of the day, it literally takes your blood glucose every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, I know what my body's doing, which to me is the most valuable tool. I have to buy this. If you have issues, which I have, but I have shitty insurance because I'm self-employed. But if you're not self-employed and you have good insurance, or you probably get it for free. If not, I pay $193 a month to know about my body every 5 minutes of the day. There's probably nothing more valuable than you can do for your health than that. And the fact that you're watching, your body kind of hit 400, you kind of don't want to do that too many times to your body. So you kind of make different choices just because you know what that choice is going to do to you, because you have your phone and you can check and say, oh, wow, I just had, a hamburger at Burger King and my blood glucose is 375. But if I have the same hamburger at home and it's grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and it's on a different type of bread that doesn't have all the crap that, those great tasting buns at Burger King have, my blood glucose only goes to like 150. So you're both eating a burger, but I'm making a little better choice. And what started to happen was I started to lose weight. And again, I didn't do this to lose weight. I did this to try to feel normal, and most people don't know that panic attacks happen because you have a gut imbalance. You have stuff going on in your gut. You have problems. Maybe, I always tell people, you want to know how healthy you are. What is your, excuse my language, but when you go to the bathroom, what does it look like? That's going to tell you a big story, because if you have little kids, I remember my son, and I don't want to go into an area, but I remember when my son used to go to the bathroom and he hated to flush the toilet. So he would go to the bathroom and he'd walk out of the bathroom, and we go in, and the turd, for a better word, that he'd have was 5 times bigger than mine. And he was 3-4 years old, So if you ever seen a little kid, you see how healthy everything comes out. And then when we get older, we have these little curly, things, or, we're all liquid, or it's just not normal. So that something's going on in your gut. So when you start to fix the body, and I'm doing a video that's going to probably take me a little while to put together because there's a lot of information. But the thing that taught me about my body was a DNA test. And that DNA test, you find out what your body can methylate, it's called. So what I figured about my body, and I can thank both my mother and my father because I inherited genes on both sides. So I was double on this, that my body can't methylate folic acid. So when I eat folic acid, right, my body can't methylate it. Now, think about what has folic acid: bread, rice, pasta. And now they've gotten smart because people are getting smart with this. They use the words enriched and fortified. That means folic acid. So if you see something that says enriched flour, that means flour that has folic acid in it. So folic acid is developed in a laboratory. So my body couldn't do that. But what happens, not to get too technical, because we'll do a whole video on this, but your receptors get filled up with folic acid. And then when you start taking these B vitamins that your body needs, it can't use them. So you need to start taking a methylated form of these vitamins. So anyway, to make a long story short, I took this DNA test and they test 12 different genes. And I was bad on 7 of the 12. And that's the foundation. So when you fix, like you said, a horse, we fix from the feet up. Well, your body, you need to fix from the vitamins, from the minerals, from inside out. So if your body has all the vitamins it needs and can use them properly, all the minerals they need and can use them properly, the right fatty acids that it needs and it can use them properly, right? Your body can heal itself. Your body is the greatest healing mechanism ever created. And we have everything in Mother Nature that we need to heal ourselves. We don't need prescription drugs. We don't need a single prescription drug. And if you want to read a great book, which will blow your mind a little bit, because I know you like the ivermectin story. Read about ivermectin and how ivermectin could have solved COVID-19 and what our government did. The name of the book is called The Real Fauci. I think that's what it's called. And written by RFK Jr. And he talks about ivermectin and how ivermectin could have stopped COVID-19 in its tracks. How a lawyer in Syracuse, he had a client and their mother was dying in the hospital and they wanted to give her ivermectin. And the hospital said no. And the reason they said no is because the government made it impossible. So don't forget, they were getting, and not to get into an ugly, sad area, but they were making $37,000 for every person that they put on a ventilator. And the hospitals were just letting them die. You know, you come in, you got COVID, it's bad, they put you on a ventilator, and they leave you there, right? And that's it. And if, God forbid, you made it out, good for you. If you didn't, you died, oh well, and they move on. So this particular client wanted to give ivermectin to her dying mother, and the hospital said no. So they hired an attorney. An attorney took it to the state, this is in New York, the state court, state Supreme Court, whatever it's called, and got an immediate injunction to give her ivermectin. 12 hours later, she was fine, right? Then they had, so that the news got hold of this, and then they started to talk about it. And then this lawyer, I have his name somewhere, I can't remember it, but if you read Fauci's book, you'll hear about the story, ended up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients now who are reaching out to him to try and get the hospitals to give their dying friends, parents, kids, siblings, ivermectin. And this lawyer had to keep going. I think he did it in New York and Ohio. He was in 32 different courts throughout this whole pandemic, getting all these injunctions so he can give people ivermectin. And he says every single person that he made it back to them with ivermectin in time lived. And everybody who he didn't get back to died. So when you start hearing stuff like that, you realize that we're all involved in a money game. We were just involved in the greatest human experiment ever in the history of the world. We are guinea pigs. And when you go to your doctor, and you tell them, they take a blood test. And again, I talk about this. You go to a doctor and you say, hey, I want to go get a blood test. They take a blood test to test your glucose levels. And they take an A1C, which is basically a 2 to 3 month average of your glucose over that 2-month period of time. And then it comes back and they're like, well, you had a 150 fasting glucose and your A1C was 7.5. So here's what we got to do. We're going to put you on metformin. We're going to put you on some other drug. And then we're going to come back. You come back in 3 months and we'll see how you do. But they don't test you for insulin resistance. Because if they tested you for insulin resistance, if they tested you at 35 when insulin resistance starts, or 30, or for now, with the way kids are being brought up now, probably in their 20s, they start to develop insulin resistance. If they tested you, they can say, hey, my friend, you have insulin resistance. Your body, while it's still producing insulin because your pancreas is young and it hasn't gotten beat up like mine did for 54 years, it's still going to produce insulin, but it's producing a lot of insulin. It's working triple, quadruple, 10, because these kids, these young people are just eating shitty food. I mean, I just read something that Tyson finally agreed to take fructose corn syrup out of their stuff. Really? Oh, thank you. You stop poisoning us now. Oh, we appreciate it. Or the craziest part, when I went to Canada to go visit my son, I think I put it on my Facebook page. I happened to be looking at the bottle of ketchup, and I'm looking at the ingredients in the back, and I'm like, I actually understand these ingredients. What's going on? So I looked up the U.S. So Heinz ketchup, Canada, Heinz ketchup, United States of America. High fructose corn syrup, 3 different names of some kind of sugar that they're putting in, some kind of coloring that they're putting in. Canadian, right, was natural tomatoes from puree. The word sugar was used and some other thing. And I'm thinking to myself, the Canadians won't allow Heinz to make this and sell this product over here because the Canadian government is paying for their health care and whatever, so they don't want you sick. In the United States, we're paying for our health care. Big pharma is a gazillion-dollar industry. So what do they need? In other words, what do they want? They need sick people. In order for Pfizer to keep making profits, me and you, we need to fill prescriptions. What I'm telling you to do, fasting, they can't make money from you fasting. They can't make money from you not eating carbs in the morning. They can't make money from you walking on a treadmill. They can't make money from you because you walk barefoot in your backyard. But what happens is from January 2nd till April 10th, I think, I lost like 30 pounds just walking. Now, all I didn't pick up a weight. I didn't do nothing. The only weight I was picking up was my fork. That's it. I did nothing else but watch what I ate and walk. I didn't even really focus too much on fasting yet. I just was making better choices and not having my blood sugar climb. Around probably late April, I was coming back from a hockey game with my son and my wife, and we were in a car. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. My son's like, I'm hungry. My wife's like, I'm hungry too. They ended up getting pizza. So there's a couple things that are my kryptonite. Pizza's one of them. We used to have pizza every Tuesday, So we got pizza. I was gone all day. So I had 3 slices of pizza. And at this point, I was like, I need to walk probably like 5,000 more steps. I'm like, all right, you know what? I ate the pizza. I went downstairs. I got on the treadmill. I turned the TV on. I'm like, all right, I'm going to walk my 5,000 steps. And this is the first time I realized this. I know it sounds crazy, and I probably should know this. But I guess you don't know what you don't know. And I'm sitting down here and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready for my blood glucose to hit 400. So I'm walking on the treadmill, just kind of looking at my phone. And it's not going anywhere. It's not even moving. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So 20 minutes, 30 minutes went by, and it started to climb a little bit. So I noticed that. So I think it took me about an hour, maybe a little less than an hour to get to my 10,000 steps walking on a treadmill. I'm walking 2.5 miles per hour. I'm just really watching TV, walking comfortably, nothing strenuous. And what I realized was, wow, I mean, Larry, I feel like I'm retarded when I say this now, but I realized that my body was actually burning the sugar that I ate and making it go away. And that's when my life really changed, because then I realized that I can control every part of my life now. I can not eat whatever I want, but if I wanted to cheat at night, as long as I was willing to get on a treadmill and walk for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I'd be okay. And not that I tried to cheat, but going through life knowing that you can still eat pizza once in a while, you can still go to McDonald's and have a Big Mac once in a while. It's way different than telling you you can never eat this ever again, or you can't do this ever again. So that allowed me the opportunity to make a choice because I wanted to make a choice, not because I had to make a choice. So fast forward now, it was probably in April 10th, I also started working out with my son. So it was time for me to hit the weights. I wanted to because as you get older, the most important thing is to be able to have strong muscles. And the stronger you are, when you get older, the longer you're going to live. Because when you get weak and your muscles start to get weak and you can't walk because your knees hurt and this hurts and that hurts, you have no choice but to sit. You have no choice but to not be mobile. So I wanted to, and I know I'm still young, but I still wanted to. I'm not looking to win a bodybuilding contest, but I wanted to go and start to lift weights and start to get a little bit stronger. So I started doing that, and then my body started to change, and I had to come off of all the blood pressure medicine because it was dropping my blood pressure too low. I had to come off of all the diabetic medication because my sugars were going too low. My alarm was beeping because I was going below 70 as opposed to going above 200. So I stopped all the medication. I stopped everything. I now take no medication. I start at 255 pounds. I'm at, depending on the day, between 202 and 204 pounds. I had to throw my entire wardrobe away. I was a double XL, 36, 38 pants. Now I'm a large, some XL, but large. And my pants are now 34s. So I literally had nothing to wear. I had literally threw away a lifetime of clothing, and started from scratch. But you have to make a life. It has to be a change in your life. There's no 1 week fix or 2 week fixes. You have to do different things. And we're in my future podcast, we're starting a thing called, I'll say it here. I didn't want to really talk about it a lot, but I want to start a thing called replacing happy hour with healthy hour. So instead of going to the bar to hang out with your friends for an hour to talk, hey, why not go to the beach and walk around and spend an hour walking around? You walk for an hour at 6,000 steps. So instead of, sitting at a bar, eating nachos, drinking a beer, why not you and your friend go for a walk down the beach, enjoy the beautiful weather, and talk? And if it's winter out and it's snowing, go to the gym. They have treadmills right next to each other, right? Get on a treadmill with your buddy, put on a nice TV show, and watch. So you need to make changes in your life that are different, because you can't make a change it took me 54 years to become 255 pounds with diabetic, high blood pressure, massive panic attacks. You name it, we could go down the list of, I got shingles, so if you've never had shingles, holy cow. And shingles is an immune, so my immune system was starting to fail. I started getting them the dark patches behind my neck. I started getting eczema. You name it, I was starting to get it. So I was headed down a really, really ugly path. And thank God thank God the pandemic happened, because I stopped trusting the system. And I started going, all right, you know what? These people are flat out lying to us. And obviously now we could all see it, but I never took the COVID shot because, and my son was forced to, my daughters were forced to, my wife chose to because she wanted my daughters to feel right, but my daughters weren't allowed to go to school unless they took a COVID shot. So they either had to drop out of college or take a COVID shot. My son was getting stopped from playing hockey. So he was either going to end his hockey career, and or take the COVID shot. But for us, we were at the track. They didn't make trainers or us have to take the COVID shot, or at least I didn't do it. So I don't know if they made us or whatever, but they never asked me. So I knew that whole system, they were full of shit, and I watched up close Belmont, that closed community. I watched every single person in the barn get COVID, and they were all on the COVID shot. Every single one of them. They all got COVID. They all passed it to each other. Some got really sick. Some didn't get as sick as they normally would. I think there was 2 people that died, maybe 3 the entire time. And those guys, were very old and probably were drinking from the top for the last 60 years. So they were probably on death's door anyway. So I saw it firsthand going, they're lying to us. They're trying to scare the shit out of us. So that got me to start looking at other alternatives to trying to be healthy. And thank God I found this, and, I don't know if you see my videos, but me and my wife, we go in the morning and we find different spots and we make videos and I got an idea that we're going to try to put like, mount one of those GoPros on our chest. And I had the idea that if I went to like the beach, Cove Beach, and just put it there and just walked around, and you could kind of be on the thing with me. And then I would, put it on my YouTube channel. And then when you're walking on your treadmill, you could flip it on the big screen and you could kind of go for a walk with me down the beach and see whatever I'd see, even though you can't really come out and get to the beach. And we went to Sherwood Park today. Absolutely beautiful. We start doing hikes, through the woods. I take the dog with me. So I changed my lifestyle. I think that's what I'm trying to get. Like, I had to do different things. So I get up in the morning now and I go for a walk. I take my supplements. I do things that I've never done before. And the results, and listen, it took me 54 years to break my body and turn into this overweight, very sick person that was headed down a really bad road. I don't expect to be a perfect health specimen in 9-10 months. So I understand that it's a long road and a lifetime road. So, but once you start seeing the results there's no turning back. Like, I can't even imagine myself there again. I love the way I feel. I love getting up. Another thing that I want to stress is sleep. I think the most important thing is trying to learn or trying to get to sleep and allow your body to heal. And I wear this. It's a Whoop. We're going to do a whole video on the Whoop and how it measures sleep. It's super, super accurate. It tells you a lot about your body, but more importantly, it can sense when your body's in deep sleep versus regular sleep. It actually can tell you I've proven this because I know what time I wake up in the middle of the night, because sometimes I wake up and I'm awake for like 20 minutes. And my Whoop in the morning will say, you woke up this time, you woke up this time, you woke up this time, and it'll give you like a recovery. So if you had a great night and you start understanding your body and a routine and going to sleep, and if you're somebody who's anxious, a great way to fix anxiety is to take a cold shower, then turn it to hot, then turn it back to cold, and kind of shock your body, and your brain will release the stuff, and you'll start to be able to sleep better. So sleep is very important. Fasting is very important, but that's a life changer. Understanding what food does to your body, trying to stay away from sugar as much as you can, is the number one thing that will change your life. And then your joints stop hurting. My lower back has stopped hurting. Things that are unrelated to anything has all stopped hurting because, of all this stuff. So
now, how are you going to go on? Where would they find these podcasts that you're doing? Only on Facebook?
yeah, no, it's I got a YouTube channel, so it's called Live Long, Live Life. So Live Long, Live Life. I mean, you put it in the search engine, it'll pop up. You look up my name, you go to my Facebook page. There's 500 different things, but yeah, I think we have 3 videos out. We have a lot of short stuff going, but again, I'm trying to get as much information out there as possible. It's kind of tricky because you're talking about health and you're not a doctor. So sometimes I get a little backlash from YouTube, because they say you make claims or whatever. But again, even if you're diabetic or whatever, I'm not telling anybody to, hey, stop taking your meds and start doing this. That's not what I'm saying. But if you do start doing this, have a close eye on your meds because they might drop you. It might start going the other way. So have a good relationship with your doctor and tell them what you're doing and say, hey, I'm trying something different. I'm trying to lower my blood sugar naturally and keep an eye out because, if you start burning all the glucose in your body and then you hit yourself with insulin too, you're going to drop low there, so you don't want to have low blood sugar. That's a big no-no, so be careful, but everything, happened. I didn't do this day one and throw away my pills, start, make one change. Instead of drinking Coke, drink water. Instead of, having bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel, have it on a plate. Like just make one change. And then next week, make another change and then make another change. Because if you try to make every change all at once and then you stop doing something, you think you failed, you're going to quit. And the only way you fail is if you quit. So if I quit every time I cheated on this thing, week 1, this would have been over there. My wife,
Live long, live life. That's if somebody Googles that, your podcast.
Yeah, or go, even if they go on your channel, if you they're on YouTube right now, go in the search engine and type in Live Long, Live Life, and then it'll bring you to my channel, just like you're against all odds, Live Long, Live Life,
Okay.
So yeah. So they'll get there. Well, we're trying to do stuff and get it out there, just my hopes with all this was to give people another alternative, listen, if you're happy going to your doctor and the thing, I had a conversation with a cousin of mine, who has a lot of issues. He's on insulin. And I said to him, I said, listen, ask yourself this one question. Are you better off today than you were 1 year ago? That's the question. If you answer no to that question, then ask yourself another one. Are you going to be better off a year from now, right? 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you continue to keep doing what you're doing, right? My whole thing was in January 2nd, I was 255 pounds. I was on 5 pills. I had diabetes. I had high blood pressure. I had massive panic attacks. I had enough energy to make it through an hour of a day before I needed to take to rest, sit on the couch, watch TV, whatever. All right. And now we're in September, 9 months later, I weigh 204 pounds. I take no medication. My blood sugar is, I don't know, probably good now since I haven't eaten in a while, but let's see. My blood sugar is 106, right? So my blood sugar is pretty good. I did eat before, so I sat down for a while. But anyway, it's 106, right? So when we get done, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to walk on a treadmill till that thing says 95, and then I'm going to go to bed. So for me, 9 months later, my life has completely taken a 360, and I can't wait what I'm going to look like and feel like 9 months from now, So that's the main thing. I'm not a doctor, and whatever, but that's what I did, and it changed my life. And I'm hoping that whether you do what I do or you find some other solution for yourself. You just change the way you're living, because going to the doctor, was on 5 pills. When I went to see my doctor, he wanted to put me on 2 more, right? So he was going to put me on the Lexapro, and he was going to put me on a statin. Now, mind you, I went to my doctor. I had not taken a blood test yet. And he told me I should take a statin. I said, why? He said, well, as a preventive. I'm like, what? You want me to take an anti-cholesterol drug that's going to lower my cholesterol, and you don't even know if I have cholesterol? He said, yes, that's what the norm is. So my question to you or everyone who's watching is, if the answer to heart disease is high cholesterol, then why is heart disease still the number 1 killer if the whole world's on statins?
Very good.
How's that possible? Right? I asked that to my doctor. He said, well, there's other things. I go, no, there's no other things. If the reason you want me on this cholesterol is I don't have heart issues, because cholesterol clogs up arteries, and arteries lead to heart attacks. And the number 1 sold drug in the country, in probably the world, is a statin. Why are heart attacks still the number 1 leading cause of death? Right? No answer. So we need to stop trusting what our doctor says, because he works for Big Pharma. He works for somebody that needs him to prescribe medication. And I've never been to a doctor in my life, told them I had a problem, and walked out without medication, ever. You go and have a cold, they're going to give you a antibiotic. You go and you tell them your foot hurts, they're going to give you a painkiller. You go tell them you have your sugar's high, they're going to give you whatever you can come up with. They got something for you, right? That's not the answer. So, like I said, a baby aspirin does damage. So he was about to put me on 7 pills at 54 years old. How many was I going to be after and the one thing they ask you when you want to go on metformin, they make you do a kidney test, because they want to test your kidney. Why? If metformin is safe, why are they testing your kidney? Right? Because if you have kidney issues, they won't put you on metformin, because metformin starts to damage your kidney. And if you have a damaged kidney, you start developing high blood pressure. And the kidney when you have excess sugar in your body, the kidney is what gets rid of it, puts it in your urine, and it gets it out of your body, right? So if you damage that kidney that naturally is supposed to do that, how long after you start taking metformin are you going to need insulin? So it's a rough game that we're involved in. I hope that I can help somebody, and if I do, great. And if I don't, hey.
I know one thing, that trying to teach somebody to do something that's preventative, it's very, very difficult. They always wait until something serious happens.
I want the magic pill.
Yeah, how are your kids handling this? Are they following in your footsteps? Are they
Yes.
paying more attention now?
Yeah, we are a family of walkers now. So, my daughter's always FaceTiming me from her beautiful California walk. My other daughter's going for walks every day after work. My son, actually, who probably trains all day hockey, when he comes home at night, he eats dinner, he goes and walks around the neighborhood. So yeah, they definitely bought in, because they saw what I was really like, and they see me now, and they know that it works. So, they're definitely big believers, and Nico's a big. I've always taught Nico to take care of his body, because when you're in a physical sport, you need to take care of your body. So from very young, he always understood that his body is his moneymaker, so he needs to take care of it. So he does. He eats right. He takes supplements. He does cold water plunging stuff. So he's always taking care of himself. So yeah, he's actually had this on for, I think, almost 2 years before I even knew what it was. I used to think he was like, what are you doing? Who cares how you see? Why are you wasting your time with that stuff?
What is that? Tell me what that is. I got to get one.
It's called a Whoop. WHOOP.
Wait a minute.
WHOOP.
WHOOP. Where do you buy it at?
The company's called Whoop. So if you go to whoop.com, they send it to you for free, and then you pay a yearly service to use it. It connects to your phone, and you basically, it tells you everything you want to know about yourself, your recovery, how much time you spend sleeping, how many steps you take. So it measures your steps. It measures your heart rate. I don't have it because I don't have high blood pressure anymore. But if you want, they have ones that measure your blood pressure, your pulse, you name it, they have it. So, like I said, collecting data on your health is important. So I have a live picture of how I sleep and how my body feels all day. I have a live picture of how my insides are working through how much sugar's in my blood, and through a little bit of exercise, a little bit of walking. I've been able to make a full, 360, or maybe not 360 yet. Maybe I'm at 300 or something. I'm getting to 360 slowly.
That thing that's under your arm is the same thing as this Whoop thing?
No, the Whoop is the thing under my arm. That's a CGM. So this is just a cover. So I don't look like a sick patient, because if you take this off, you'll see like a little transmitter, and it basically transmits to your phone. There's like a little tiny, you don't feel it. It's like a little minuscule needle that gets shot into your arm, and it's basically reading your blood. So every 5 minutes, it's sending me a signal to my phone saying, all right, your glucose is 106. 5 minutes later, if I'm on the treadmill, it might go to 100. And if I'm on the treadmill for 5 minutes more, it might go to 95, So I used to run experiments early on. Like I would eat, a meal, and I would just literally record my phone, and then I would watch it fast after to see what that food did to my body. When could I go for a walk and stop it from going up? So let's say I wanted to eat a bacon, egg, and cheese on a hard roll. Well, I know if I eat a bacon, egg, and cheese on a hard roll, exactly 20 minutes after I eat it, my blood sugar starts to go. So after 20 minutes of eating it, if I start walking around a little bit, I slow that process up because I'm burning the sugar.
How do you get that thing? That's under your arm. Yeah.
The company's called Dexcom, DEXCOM, Dexcom 7. The number 7. It's a Dexcom 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So that if you're gonna do one thing, I say do this first. Again, this lasts 10 days. So you put it in, and you're good for 10 days. After 10 days, whatever. They probably can make them longer, but hey, they got to make money. So every 10 days, I pop it out, and then I switch arms, and I'll put it on this one for 10 days. And then, so it cost me $193 to have these in my arm. And then this, Nico has one, I have one. I don't even remember what it's not a lot, probably $100 for the year, nothing crazy, but
that the one under your arm, is that a monthly thing, a weekly thing, or what?
Well, I buy I buy them. It's like you need a prescription to get. So believe it or not, if you want to put a CGM on, they make you get a prescription to get it. So somehow this has become prescription. So anyway, that's another story. But yeah, they give you three things come in a prescription. So it's a 30-day prescription. It costs $193. Me, $193. If you have insurance, it could be free. You can
What
use.
if you have Medicaid or Medicare?
They should cover, Larry. They should cover it. I don't know. My mother's coming back from Greece, and I'm going to make her put it on. So she has, that Medicare, Medicaid stuff. So I'll know better then. I don't know. I really don't. I know that I paid $193, and it's worth every penny.
I'm going to check it out. All right, we've been gone for 2.5 hours.
All right,
so I want you to get on your treadmill. I thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you come on again on a regular basis and just keep us informed. And I'm going to be looking at this Live Long, Live Life. That's a good name. And,
well, I figure you want to live long, but you want to live life while you're living long. You don't want to be in a bed, having people take care of you. Living long and living life at the same time.
And it was my friend Sharman who I went to see. Sharman is Alfred's wife, who's 90 years old and going through a lot of stuff. They just put a bunch of stents in him. But she just said today exactly what you said. And I noticed the time you said it. You said it 10 minutes after 10, because I'm going to tell her, make sure, because I don't know if he's up this late, but he said he's going to watch the show. What you said is exactly what she said. She said, Alfred always played tennis and always was. Now all he does is sit in that chair, and his legs are starting to atrophy, and he's not walking around. And exactly what you said is happening to him. That it's so important. What you said. If your legs go, you might as well just kill yourself, because yeah. So it's unbelievable that you said that, and that's exactly what she said. So how she because they're getting so very, very thin, all the muscle's gone. So she says she's going to start them off walking in the pool, and just walking in the pool, and then. But I'm glad you said that, and it's exactly what we were talking about this afternoon. So anyway, Peter, I thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Larry.
It was nice to meet you again. And anytime you want to come on again, when you have something new, and I'll tell everybody to look at this, Live Long, Live Life. And that was it. It was nice seeing you again, and good luck to you. Good luck to your kids and your lovely wife, who I never met. And that's it.
All right, Larry. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Well, folks, that was very interesting. Very interesting. I'm going to get this stuff. I'm going to get this stuff that he said. In the meantime, I'm tired, and we're going to end it right now. So thanks for tuning in. And, oh, by the way, I forgot. We're going to be here tomorrow. Tomorrow night, all the boys are coming on. All the guys are coming on tomorrow night, and we'll have some fun. In the meantime, punch this in. Live long, live life. I'm going to get them things. Okay. Good night, folks. I'll see you.